probably seen that acronym, BRICS, popping up in the headlines a lot lately. It sounds big, right? Like some new superpower ready to take on the West. But what is it, really? Is it a genuine alliance? Or is it just a lot of hype? Well, today, we're going to cut through all that noise and break down exactly what BRICS is, where it came from, and why it just might reshape our world.
Okay, let's start with just one number to give you a sense of scale here. 46%. What is that? That's the share of the entire world's population living in BRICS countries. Think about that. We are talking about nearly half of every single person on this planet. So this isn't some small, exclusive club. It's a demographic giant. And with that many people, well, that comes with some serious economic weight.
And speaking of that economic weight, this chart really shows the massive shift that's underway. And forget just converting currencies for a second. When you measure what economies can actually produce and buy, something called purchasing power parity, the BRICS group has now officially overtaken the G7. For decades, the G7 nations were the undisputed economic leaders of the world. That era, it's over.
So we see the incredible scale. We see the growing economic power. But that brings us right to the core question. What actually is this group? And why is it suddenly expanding and grabbing all these headlines right now?
All right, so first, let's just pull back the curtain and define what this thing is. Who exactly is sitting at the table, and what are they trying to accomplish together? At its core, BRICS is basically a club for governments. The original five, as you might know, were Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But it just went through a huge expansion, adding Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the UAE, with Indonesia set to join in 2025. And their official goal is pretty straightforward: work together to get more say, more influence on the world stage.
But here's something that might surprise you. BRICS wasn't born as a political alliance. The origin story is kind of funny. It actually started as just a catchy buzzword inside an investment bank.
Just look at this evolution. Back in 2001, BRIC was literally just a term coined by a Goldman Sachs economist to describe some hot, promising markets. But then the countries themselves kind of took the name and just ran with it. By 2009, they were holding their first formal summit, turning a Wall Street concept into a real political group. South Africa joined in 2010, and then came the huge expansion in 2024. In a little over 2 decades, it went from a banker's buzzword to a major global forum.
But here's the twist. The very guy who coined the term, Jim O'Neill, is now one of its biggest critics. He argues that for all the lofty speeches and photo ops, the group is more about symbolism than substance. And this really gets to the heart of the debate. Is BRICS a genuine force for change, or is it just a talking shop? So, is it all just talk? Well, let's look at the action part of this whole debate. Because BRICS isn't just holding meetings. They're actively trying to build a parallel financial system pretty much from the ground up. At the heart of the whole BRICS project is this desire for an alternative. For more than 70 years, global finance has been dominated by 2 big institutions, the World Bank and the IMF. The BRICS nations basically argue that this system was built by and for the benefit of wealthy Western countries, and they just don't think it serves the needs of the developing world anymore.
And this is their answer: the New Development Bank, or NDB. Unlike the World Bank, all its founding members are developing nations. Its mission is laser-focused. It funds infrastructure and sustainable development, but, and this is the key part, it tries to do it without all the political strings they feel often come attached with Western loans.
And the NDB is putting real money to work. It's already approved over $32 billion for nearly 100 projects. So this isn't just some theoretical idea anymore. It's a real, functioning development bank that is financing actual roads, power plants, and water systems on the ground.
This financial ambition leads to another key concept you've probably heard about: de-dollarization. Right now, the US dollar is the king of global trade, which gives the United States enormous economic and political power. BRICS wants to change that. They're pushing to trade amongst themselves using their own currencies, and they're even building payment systems like BRICS to bypass the dollar altogether. But as the group gets bigger and more ambitious, it also gets a whole lot more complicated. For all the talk of unity, BRICS is an alliance that's filled with some deep internal fault lines.
Let's be honest, this is not a tight-knit alliance like NATO. You've got a tense, ongoing border dispute between 2 of its giants, China and India. You have vibrant democracies like Brazil and South Africa sharing a table with autocracies like Russia and Iran. You even have historic regional rivals like Iran and the UAE in the same club now. These aren't minor issues. They're fundamental challenges to the group's ability to ever really act as one.
So, where does all of this leave us? What is the future of BRICS? Is it truly the beginning of a new world order, or is it just an ambitious project that's destined to crumble under the weight of its own contradictions?
Let's just circle back to the raw numbers for a second. In terms of people, land, and economic output measured by purchasing power, the expanded BRICS bloc is now larger than the G7. The sheer scale is just undeniable. The potential for a fundamental shift in global influence is right there in the data.
And this quote from the UN Secretary General really captures the motivation driving this whole shift. The feeling that the global order set up after World War II is outdated and unfair, well, that's not a fringe idea. It's a sentiment shared by a huge portion of the world, and BRICS is channeling that frustration into a political project.
And you can bet the established powers are taking notice. The reaction from the West has ranged from kind of dismissing the group as an incoherent talk shop all the way to former U.S. President Trump threatening 100% tariffs against any de-dollarization efforts. This response alone shows that, successful or not, the BRICS challenge is being taken very seriously.
And so we end with the fundamental question. Is BRICS really shaping a new multipolar world with a genuine alternative to the Western-led order? Or, as its own creator now seems to fear, are its internal divisions just too great to overcome? The answer to that question will probably shape the story of the 21st century.